Hello there, beautiful people. CineMama is back after a long hiatus, finally out of a self-imposed exile from reviewing films. But as they say, for how long can you keep Tarantino away from feet? Not only was a pathetic, or rather dull adult life keeping me unmotivated to review films, no, it's not an excuse really, but I was looking forward to some film releasing and knocking me hard enough to get me to review films again. And in this process, I watched films aplenty, this time around the focus being more on films rooted deep into the soil they come from. And it is in this series came finding me a rather captivating Kannada film that just hit it out of the park for me, just like Joe and No, reviews for which you'll soon see on my channel. The film that I'm gonna talk about today is a superlative melange of tradition, horror, and intricacies of connection between human being and nature, much like the widely acclaimed Kumar. A film that will push you into a visual dimension with its god-level earthy cinematography and intricate technical work around capturing the essence of coastal regions of southern India, enhanced manifolds by impactful background music, written and directed and played lead role in by Rishab Shetty. I review for you today Kantara. Before we move to the review, click on the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to not miss a single upload from CineMama. It's 1847. A king in the coastal Karnataka who leads a fulfilling life, married and having 2 children, and loved by each individual in his kingdom, is restless as he feels that his rather fulfilling life is devoid of fundamental peace and satisfaction. In his quest to get the reasons behind and solutions to his restlessness, he reaches saints and godmen who tell him that the absence of the elderly in his life is what is causing him the utter restlessness that he is experiencing, and that he will have to step out to find the solution to cure himself. The king sets out, goes places, and one fine day, in a remote tribal area, he comes across a deity referred to as Daiva in the film, established in the form of a stone, Panjurli, that roughly translates to male wild boar and corresponds to Indian god Vishnu's third incarnation Varaha. Looking at this Daiva, the king immediately feels an immense sense of peace and happiness, and he realizes that this is the ultimate peace that he was looking for. But knowing that he needs to carry Panjurli Daiva back to his palace for the peace to last through his life, he talks to the tribals and requests them to let him carry the Panjurli Daiva back to his palace. One of the tribals gets possessed immediately by Panjurli and asks the king what he can give to the tribals in exchange of the deed. The conversation to follow leads to Panjurli demanding the piece of land throughout which Panjurli's divine scream could be heard. The king agrees to give that much piece of land to the tribals, but Panjurli in turn says to the king that if the king or anybody from his family is to ever dishonor this deed, the forgiving Panjurli may allow it, but Guliga, the Daiva that fiercely protects the oath taken by king in front of Panjurli, will unleash a wrath on the family of the king, thereby destroying their peace. The king agrees and brings back to palace with himself the Panjurli Daiva in form of the stone, and establishes it in his palace and lives happily ever after. More than a century later, in 1970, during Bhoota Kola festival, one of the king's greedy descendants asks the tribals back for the land that the king had given to him in exchange of the Panjurli Daiva. The Kola performer, whom the Panjurli Daiva has possessed at this time, gets offended at the descendant's misdemeanor and rebuttal of the deal between king and Panjurli, while telling the descendant that the verdict on his demand of land will be given at the stairs of the court where he is trying to take the matter. Seconds later, an offended Panjurli in the body of the possessed tribal runs towards the forest and disappears within the fizzling circle of ember, with the tribal's body to be found nowhere. And the next day, the greedy descendant dies a horrific death at the stairs of the courtroom, as was said by Panjurli. Cut to 1990, Kadpettu Shivanna, played by Rishab Shetty, is shown as the son of the Kola performer who disappeared in the forest the night Panjurli had possessed him. He's an expert Kambala player, a good-for-nothing fellow. Shiva drinks and smokes all day, hunts for wild boars, and creates nuisance for residents of the hamlet. Due to his hooliganism and rebellious nature, Shiva's cousin Guruva has taken up the responsibility of performing Kola every year, where Guruva becomes the medium for Panjurli to enter and communicate with the tribals. The deputation of a new, honest forest officer Murli, played brilliantly by an unrecognizable Kishore, leads to escalated tensions since day one between the tribals and the government authorities, who are pampered and looked after by Devendra Sudhiru, played by Achyuth Kumar. Devendra also happens to be the son of the greedy descendant of the king, who had died as he asked back for the land given to the tribals. The fierce confrontations that happen between Murli and Shiva, while Devendra and his henchmen play the convenient manipulators, and how a smitten Leela faces the dilemma between performing her duty as forest police and helping Shiva and her other tribal folks, as one of them makes up for the rest of the story, with an extravagant climax blown way out of proportion, indulges you in an experience of a lifetime. Kantara, even for those who may not be very well acquainted with the significance of religious depictions in the film, is a spectacle not worth missing. The production design put together by debutant Dhanni Gangeputra has all my respect and attention, as you feel a deep sense of oneness with the atmosphere that has been created in the film. Arvind Kashyap, who you may know from the recent Charlie 777 or Bell Bottom, has managed to create multiple superlatively immersive experiences. May it be Kambala, may it be the intense fight sequences between forest officers, henchmen, and tribals, or may it be the extravagant climax. Arvind Kashyap will not let you feel even for a second that you are a mere spectator. He'll convince you that you are part of the environment. You can't help but put your hands together as a mark of respect in sync with the tribals as the climactic sequence begins to grow on you. Watch out for a pre-climax fight between Shiva and some goons at the gun repairer's shop. It's an absolute explosion on screen to witness peak energies of Rishab Shetty, Vikram Mori, Arvind Kashyap come together for an exhilarating sequence. What Kantara does that most Indian films have failed to do is making deeply religious sequences believable, as I believe that the execution of such sequences trails a very thin line between creating a spectacle and creating a ridicule. And Rishab Shetty, with his impeccable vision and ample support from Kashyap and editors K.M. Prakash and Pratik Shetty, manages not only to create a spectacle but raise the bar so high that it becomes one of its kind. Kantara makes you believe in the world that it creates, and that is where it wins as a creative effort. Background music and songs by Ajneesh Loknath, especially EDM-laced devotional track Varaha Rupam, clearly blends well with the storyline, almost homogeneously as it narrated human connection to the environment and the gods and demigods that they worship. One of the elements that surprisingly doesn't mar the solemn nature of the film is humor in places one couldn't predict it will exist in. The band of misfits that Shiva and his friends are would manage to make you laugh in sequences where you thought you'd forgotten what joy or laughter is. Kudos to the excellent dialogue writing. One sequence somehow has managed to make it to the film where Shiva peeks to see Leela bathing comes across as a very uncomfortable watch, especially because in any context whatsoever it was unnecessary. All in all, Kantara is a magical watch and rather beautifully manages to become a piece of art that would give you the same sensory pleasure 10 years down the line, and that's what makes it a modern classic. That's all from CineMama this week. Stay tuned for more, as CineMama takes immense pleasure in bringing to you the masterpieces that one should watch in their lifetime. Don't go yet is my most favorite scene from the film for you.
ಈಗ ಗಂಧೆಗೆ ಇಳಿಯುತ್ತಿರುವಂತಹ ಕೋಣಗಳು ಕಾಡುಬೆಟ್ಟು ಶಿವಣ್ಣನವರು